We make dental billing and insurance easier to understand. Subscribe to stay updated and help us grow the channel.
Let's talk about the unfortunate scenario of what if something happens to the doctor. So there's so many different issues that can happen. There could be a disability, an accident that keeps that doctor from coming back for an extended period of time, or actually requires that something happen with the sale of the practice. And I've met very many doctors who, everybody feels very healthy until something happens. And unfortunately, that's life. So I've talked to so many doctors who have been able to come back from an injury or a disability because they had really good insurance or they had options, that type of thing. But in order for that to happen, you have to have insurance, you have to have options. And sometimes that isn't the case. So let's talk about succession planning when it's the doctor with a disability or an accident that ends their dental career. Okay, let's talk about that first. When that situation happens, you're going to have to deal with, as the manager, and we're going to take it from the manager point of view, of course, what you'll have to deal with is having a plan of action. And that's why I want you to do this. Think about this and discuss this before it happens to you, because you won't be in any kind of shape to make really good decisions when they're flying at you left and right. Because remember, it's not just you having to decide, how do we go forward with the practice? How do we make some decisions? And there might be a sale involved, that kind of thing. But you're also going to be very emotional, and you're going to have the rest of the team coming at you to see what's going on, what's happening. And you might actually have some team members that decide to leave because they don't know what's going on. And I would like for us to be able to communicate that so that you can not have that happen. That's just one less stress that you would have to deal with if everybody knows what's going on and isn't trying to jump ship as fast as possible. And, I don't fault anyone for doing that. Some of us are single mothers. Some of us are the solo provider in the office. Some of us just cannot afford to take a hit on the paycheck. And so I get it. I'm not trying to pass any shade or anything like that. It is what it is. So what I want us to think about is, how are we going to communicate to the employees, hey, stay while we figure that out? So there has to be some sort of talking point that comes from the rest of what I'm going to discuss with you. The first thing that you'll need to do is to figure out how you're going to talk to the patients. So employees are important, sure, but you also are going to need help talking to the patients, and everybody has to be on board. So let's take the scenario of the doctor being out for, maybe they had a bad motorcycle accident or something, and they're out for 8 months. Okay, so at this point, you're going to need to decide, and hopefully you will have discussed this. Is someone going to come in? Will you be able to hire a locum tenens doctor to come in and help with that? Does your doctor have a network of friends in the area and also from out of the area that they could take turns seeing your patients so that there's no loss of revenue to the practice? What I really love about the dental community is many dentists keep in touch with each other. They know each other. And even if there's rivals down the street, it doesn't matter. In times of crisis, I have seen people who don't like each other help each other out. And because we realize there's more at stake than just that guy takes on my patients and that female over there, she has better marketing. That's not important. What's important is we're all in this and we need to keep our businesses going. And there's patients too. So what is the talking point to the patient? Mrs. Jones, we're going to be able to see you. Jill, the hygienist, is still going to be able to see you for an appointment. One of the doctor's really good colleagues is going to come over and help fill in while they're out. We don't know much, and it's okay to say that. We don't know much, but we will be communicating with all of the patients so that you all know what's happening. As soon as we find something out, we will make sure that we keep you updated. And feel free, Mrs. Jones, at any point, if you want to know what's going on or if you have a question, call me, because, I'm happy to pass on any messages and I'm happy to update you when you need updating. So don't feel like you can't call. It's not a don't call us, we'll call you. If you want to call us, Mrs. Jones, please do. So that's a way to keep the patients engaged and realize that, we're not shutting down, because what you don't want is to send a message that, okay, you can go somewhere else now. That's not what we want. And for very many reasons, which we'll talk about in another scenario. So what will happen though, say for example, you have somebody who's not able to come back and maybe at full time, full strength anyways, maybe they can still do evaluations, but they're not able to do any dentistry. Well, now is when you would need to start hiring associates, start talking to patients. We're most likely going to be bringing in another dentist. I might warn them just to give them a heads up. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But what I want the patient to get is a feeling that we're still your dentist. We're not going anywhere. Don't make any plans, right? That's a very easy message to convey. But let me tell you, that message is easy to convey if you discussed it ahead of time. Okay, so what's the messaging to the patients? What is the messaging to the employees? And now you and your doctor have to have some really good conversations. Here is what I want you to do. Do you want me to bring in somebody to help out as an associate? When do you want me to do that? If you're not able to come into work every day, how many months do you want me to lean on your friends to help out? And when do you want me to start hiring? So if it's a 3-month thing, what do we do in that situation? If it's a 6-month thing, what do you want me to do in that situation? And at that point, I would start bringing in somebody who does actually locum tenens for a living, where they actually travel to different areas. And there's many out there that do a great job. If you get in touch with me, I can always put the call out. I know quite a few dentists who do this, and hopefully, you can find somebody. They actually just like to travel around, and there's a lot of stuff involved in that. You'll probably have to help them out as far as finding a place to live, or, not in your house, but, finding them an apartment or some sort of long-term, hotel situation. But this is all the stuff that you need to walk through, right? And another thing that I'll bring up again in a little bit is there needs to be a pretty decent amount of operating capital in the event of any emergency. So the insurance is going to come through, but what if there's any discrepancies? That may not come through immediately. So it's very important to have access to working capital. Most advisors will tell you to have at least 2 months of working capital, operating capital in the bank so that the office can continue as usual. That includes your payroll. That includes health insurance too. You got to pay the premium on health insurance. That includes any of the overhead, any inventory, because if your associate or locum tenens is coming in, your hygiene is going to keep seeing people, then you would be able to continue to order. And of course, it's not going to be a lot of high ticket items unless you're able to get an associate in or another doctor in to continue to do the work. In a 3 to 6 month situation, you do see an intense slowdown because it is hard to bring somebody in, and a lot of the colleagues that are going to help out, they're not going to want to step on the dentist's toes by doing really big cases. They're going to do what's enough to keep things going, and that's professional courtesy. So your production is going to take a little bit of a hit there, and understandably. So again, operating expense is really important to have in the bank. If you lose employees, good news is that you'll have a little bit of money there, but bad news is you got to hire. But there needs to be enough capital to assume that everybody will stay through the crisis. Longer than 6 months, up to a year. I remember one doctor I talked to, his wife, and he was actually in the hospital for a series of surgeries on his back. They had complications and he was in there for a lot longer. It ended up being like a year and a half. She did, after about 7 months, decide she can't do this, leaning on colleagues, and she ended up bringing in an associate dentist. And it was a really sweet deal for the associate dentist because, quite frankly, they were needing to bring somebody in to keep the restorative going. And you also need a doctor there in order to write prescriptions, not for medicine, but prescriptions for radiographs, prescriptions for treatment, for scaling and root planing. Your hygienist, if it's not in the treatment plan, it hasn't been prescribed. What if your hygienist is recommending that another patient get scaling and root planing done, osteosurgery, but the locum tenens doctor or the visiting doctor, may not agree, but for sure the residence doctor would have been able to be on board with that. So you can't just, as a hygienist, you can't just keep going, right? So you do need somebody to be able to prescribe.
If you learned something new today, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep learning with us.
Would you like to hear more? Follow the link for the full episode.